Elias, is this bill racist?
I think all the details in this bill, we can find it in other laws. It exists already.
Right.
About the national anthem, about the flag, etc., and etc. I think there is one point, and the point is that the segregation between communities.
Yeah, which would allow the establishment of Jewish-only communities.
While we have admissions committee in different places.
For example,
we have it already.
So it already exists.
Why do you need to legislate it and put it on the paper? Why? You want to show the world that we can be.
So basically,
like
what you're saying is
regime.
that racism already exists in a way.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Or the segregation already.
You know what?
Segregation policies.
I mean, discussion about it is going to hurt the state of Israel and the Jewish nation.
That's what the president said.
Because all the anti-Israelis will celebrate now, and it can create between the Jewish communities in the world and other communities some tension. It increases the anti-Semitism, and at the end of the day, maybe the General Assembly will come back again
Ruthie,
to the resolution about the Zionism is racism. So it's endangering the state of Israel.
Elias is basically echoing what the president said today, Ruthie, that this might harm Israel's image in the world. Would you agree with that?
Well, it might, but I think that everything Israel does harms its image where people who are anti-Israel are concerned. In this case, I think that the specific clause in the law that talks about segregated communities is something that I would not include in that law. Everything else in the law, fine. And not because of what the international community says, but because I think it's wrong, the way I think it's wrong that the Palestinian Authority president said that no Jew would be allowed to live in the Palestinian Authority.
This law has been kicking around since the 2013. I think it was even first, proposed as an idea in 2011. So most of the ideas, the flag, the language, etc., which were controversial even back then, and people were saying we're paving the way to an apartheid state even back then, were bad enough. But this clause is part of the right-wing parties, primarily the Jewish Home and some other parties, trying to use the fact that Netanyahu wants to get this legislation in bad enough to push the legislation even further to the right, and it seems like this is a step too far. Remember that this law, if passed, will be a basic law, which means that the courts are supposed to give it a special weight, and which is why, if it is passed, it can be used in the delicate balance of the Supreme Court between a Jewish state and a democratic state. Right now,
how do you think the Supreme Court will face this? If it goes there, how do you think
if theoretically it was passed, a lot of the times where they're saying, well, we can't do this because we're a democracy, people will pull in this basic law and say, hey, we're a Jewish state, so therefore we're allowed to discriminate on the basis of preferring things that are Jewish.
Israel has the most liberal Supreme Court, I think, in the world, and so that's not going to happen. And I don't think this bill is controversial in its other clauses, actually, I've heard that from American judges, that Israel has the most liberal.
Well, if it did start to interfere, then the right would be able to say, as usual, here we have another liberal leftist court that is intervening too much, is too activist.
But aside from talking about left and right here, the left always jumps to the issue of apartheid and racism and all this stuff. Israel was established as a Jewish state. It means it's sui generis. Most other countries, I grew up in a Christian country, okay, but it didn't matter. I was a minority. I mean, that's why I moved to Israel. I was a Jew in a Christian country where the holidays were Christian, but Israel has that special character that makes it a Jewish state. That doesn't mean that the Arab minority are not citizens. It doesn't mean that they don't have equal rights. It means that the flag is the Israeli flag and the anthem is the Israeli, and Hebrew is the language.
But when you're confident in your national identity, you don't have to push it as hard as they're pushing it in this kind of legislation. It's as if they're trying as hard as they can to prevent the danger, quote unquote, of somebody trying to turn Israel into a state of all its citizens, as opposed to
just to add to what she's saying, it's already in the Declaration of Independence that Israel is, the state of. So why is this needed?
Politics.